Okay, so at the end of chapter 7, Greybeard was very angry after seeing Tao's cave paintings. So here is chapter 8, A Boy of the Painted Cave. The old man walked back and forth, his feet shuffling across the cave floor. He stopped at the entrance and looked out across the valley. He was still breathing heavily, but the storm within him was over. "I am sorry," he said. "It is a thing that must be handed down. My father was a cave painter. Now I am one. That is the way it always been. It cannot start from nothing." He stopped his pacing and looked down at Tao. "You must learn to live with things you cannot change." Tao sighed deeply, biting his lip, trying to forget. A short while later, they sat cross-legged on the cave floor, eating freshwater mussels that Tao had scooped from the creek. With sharp flint knives, they pried open the blue-black shells and picked out the soft flesh within. The smell of birch tea filled the little cave as the leather sack brewed over the open fire. They ate in silence for a while. Finally, Tao spoke. "Then it can never be?" The old man nodded impatiently. "I tell you again, unless you are born of a leader or chosen by the elders, it would not be accepted." He opened another shell and ate the contents, washing it down with a sip of birch tea. "For 1,000 summers, it has been in the minds of the people and cannot be changed." "And I must not do this thing I love? I must not make images?" Greybeard looked out through the cave entrance, gazing off into the distance. He tugged at his beard for a moment, deep in thought. Yes, do it if you wish, but do not let the others know. They would not understand, and always rub out your images when you are finished." The old man glanced at the cave wall where he had blotted out the pictures. "You have made a good beginning," he said, "but you have much to learn about form and shape. You must study the animals closely. See how they look when they run or lie down. Notice the color of their fur in the bright sun or under the shadow of a tree." Greybeard smiled. He had completely forgotten his outburst, and his eyes shone as he spoke. "Go up on the high plains and watch Saxon, the sacred bull. See how the heavy muscles ripple beneath his shoulders. Watch how he moves his head and remember the angry fire in his eyes. Then put it all into your image." "It is something like magic," said Tao, his voice rising with excitement. The old man picked up his deerskin bag, shaking it, rattling the contents within. "Here is the real magic," he said. "With these graven stones, I can speak to the spirits of the animals and bring good hunting." He took out 7 flat stones, each larger than his open hand, each engraved with the figure of a different animal. He picked out one and held it up for Tao to see. On it was the engraving of a mammoth. Tao gasped. "It is the mountain that walks." "Yes," said Greybeard. 3 summers passed. They came through the valley, and I drew this sketch." "They have not been here since." "That is true," said the old man. "But now, from the sketch, I can draw others on the walls of the secret cavern. I can draw line for line, making the shape exactly as it was when I first saw it. In this way, I can speak to the spirits of the great beasts and call them back to the valley." With the point of his flint knife, Greybeard began copying the pictures on the dirt floor of the cave. "Here," he said, "first make a large outline of the whole animal. Next, find the high point of the shoulder. Then slope the back all the way down to the tail. Greybeard swung his hand over the drawing, his eyes shining again as he drew the legs, the feet, and the trunk, using short strokes to show the hair and fur. Tal leaned forward, watching closely. Slowly, the rough picture of a mammoth began to take shape as the old man sketched in the curved tusk and the small beady eyes. "You must do this over and over," said Greybeard. "That is the way you learn. But I must warn you again. Rub out your image as soon as you are finished." Greybeard stood up and erased the drawing with the toe of his deerskin sandal. "Now I must go to the camp of your people," he said. "Tonight there will be the celebration and the ritual of the hunt." Since he was not a chosen one, Tao could not go, and he was sorry to see Greybeard leave. There was so much more he wanted to know. He got up, not looking directly at the old man. "I will go with you part of the way," he said. They climbed down the ledge, with the sun shining in their eyes, and started out along the foot of the cliffs. Tao hopped along, now using his spear as a crutch, with Ram trotting at his heels. "You will have to go more slowly if I am to keep up," said Greybeard, stifling a cough. Tao slowed his pace to that of the old man's. "If I went to the mountain people," he said, "maybe they would accept me as a cave painter." The old man stopped. He shook his head. "You do not understand," he said. "The mountain people, the lake people, the valley people, they are all the same. Their life is filled with magic, taboos, and evil spirits. If you cross the river into their land, you will not be welcome." "Yet you travel from clan to clan without harm," said Tao. "I have told you, I was born into the spirit world through my father. Now I can go where I please and do magic. By striking stones together, I can make fire. By rubbing a dab of mud on a skin hut, I can make a woman bring forth a child. By drawing the outline of a beast on a cave wall, I can bring good hunting." They walked on in silence again, with Tao deep in thought. Then he said, Even though you can do all these things, are you saying it's not true? It is not really magic?" Greybeard shrugged and tugged at his beard. "I do not know," he said. "Perhaps it is nothing more than words. Perhaps it is nothing more than shadows. Yet I am sure it brings hope to the people and boldness to the hunters. Many times the things I foretell do not happen. The people never question it. If the things I foretell come to pass, they are happy. One thing I know, if they wish to call it magic, then let it be so. If I try to tell them otherwise, they will be angry." "Here," said Greybeard, stopping once again, "I will show you something they call magic." He reached out into his deerskin pouch and took out a flat, round object. He held it in the palm of his hand, and it glistened in the sunlight like silver fire. "This is a shining stone," he said. "It was dug out of the earth and polished in the sand by my father many summers ago." They were standing in the open with the blazing sun high in the west. Greybeard walked slowly around the boy, flashing the sunlight off the glittering stone. Suddenly, he pointed it directly at Tao's face. The boy threw up his hands, his eyes blinded by the light. Greybeard smiled and placed the shining stone back into the deerskin pouch. "You see, it is not magic. It is only the power of the sun, nothing more. A long time ago, it saved me from an angry bear." When they reached the edge of the oak forest, Tao slowed his steps. "It is best if I stop here," he said. "I cannot take Ram into camp, and it would be dangerous to go too close." The old man agreed. He hummed softly and began to make ready his magic. He opened his leather pouch and brought out an ivory amulet and a necklace of bear's teeth and put them around his neck. From under his robe, he took out a bison horn. He raised it to his lips and blew a long, trumpeting blast that echoed through the forest. The effort produced a spasm of coughs. "Oh, I can no longer blow as loud or as long as I used to," he said. Then he looked down at Tao and smiled, a sly twinkle in his deep blue eyes. "Now I am ready." Tao watched the old man disappear into the oak forest. He heard the old trumpet blare again and again. He knew the women and children would go into hiding and the camp would become deathly still. As Greybeard entered the clearing, the hunters would gather around, waiting for him to speak, eager for word of the coming hunt and news of the other clans. Then, as it became dark, the rituals would begin. Tao and Ram returned to the little cave, where the boy placed some kindling in the circle of stones that was his hearth. He blew on the live embers from the old fire and soon had the flames dancing again. He fed Ram, then, squatting on his heels, he brewed up some birch tea and roasted pieces of squirrel meat on a stick. When he was finished, he stretched out on his bearskin robe and stared into the fire. He remembered 5 summers past when he was still a child. He was peering through the opening of Kala's skin hut when he first saw Greybeard in the light of the big fire, speaking to the hunters. "Hunters of the valley people," Greybeard had shouted. "The great beasts are coming back. The spotted horses and the tarpons will soon be here. The bison will cross the high plains. The red deer will gather in the spruce wood." His voice was clear and loud then. "We must be brave and strong. We must run as fast as the deer and throw our spears straight. Then there will be much meat and skins to cover our bodies and warm our women and children in the winter. Let us go now into the secret cavern and make images to please the spirits of the great beasts." The men listened and became restless and eager to go. Some of them stood up, chanting and singing. Others began to dance, their ivory amulets and bone bracelets jingling and flashing in the firelight. One played a simple flute made of a hollow bone with a hole drilled on top. He shuffled around the fire, playing the same 2 notes over and over as the hunters continued their dance. Tao had seen Greybeard climb up the path to the entrance of the big cave, followed by the hunters, carrying spears and torches. Then he could see them no more. But he knew they went far back through the winding, twisting tunnels of the cliffs into the secret cavern. There, together with a few of the chosen ones, Greybeard painted images of the great beasts and asked the blessings of the spirits of the hunt. Tao remembered what happened the next day, too. The hunters went out into the spruce forest and up into the high plains and across the valley to meet the great beasts. They were gone for 4 days. They brought back much food and skins from which to make clothing and bones and horns to make tools and ornaments. Some of the young men came back as brave hunters. Some came back with terrible wounds, and 2 did not come back at all. The day after that, there was another ceremony. This time it was sad, and there was much crying and wailing. Chapter 8, Boy of the Painted Cave.